Many nations across the globe have boasted periods of dominance in their history. However, none can compare to the grandeur of the United Kingdom, which once held the title of the world's greatest empire, second only to the Mongols. Picture this: redcoats engaging in battles with native populations, conquering and claiming territories. The audacity of calling tea a Chinese invention when it's clearly British. The British Empire, colossal force in Asia, acting as the largest cartel in the region, was even responsible for the invention of the concentration camp. Such power and influence were wielded, with the British Navy boasting a fleet larger than the volume of water in the ocean itself. Ah, Sherlock Holmes, a quintessential symbol of British wit and intellect. The United Kingdom was once proudly known as the land in which the sun never sets, a testament of its far-reaching dominion. Alas, those days have passed and the UK has been somewhat nerfed. Today, the United Kingdom is known for its beloved Paddington Bear, guards who struggle to function due to excessive hangovers, shavs without the council housing, hooligans, and the astonishing diversity found in London. It's a place where stabbings has sadly become a rather polite form of disagreement. Can you imagine schools that are somehow more hazardous and dangerous than their American counterparts? And let's not forget the time-traveling doctors and politicians who possess the chaotic and unruly nature of toddlers. And welcome back to the Based Indonesian Show, where we talk about politics and learn politics that you missed out in your entire life. Today's subject will be the United Kingdom. British politics is plagued by impertinent politicians who are so entitled that they think they can shove a working contract to the king. Contracts that basically reduce him into nothing but a figurehead for the kingdom. While these people can do whatever they want. They were called aristocrats back then. And every time they think their current king sucks ass or doesn't do a very good job of being a puppet, a civil war happens and they replace the king with a foreigner or the king's bastards. These politicians congregate around the House of Commons. The House of Commons of England, as it began, had the duty to advise the king on taxation. But because the king is always there and they tend to outnumber the king in quantity, they also use the house to tell the king that he's not doing a very good job. After England and Scotland fell in love and fused together a la Dragon Ball, I'm just kidding, that's not what happened. After Elizabeth I died, James VI, King of Scotland, inherited the crown because, as the saying goes back in the days,
one might have hoped that a field so regularly ploughed might have yielded one good crop.
James decided to unite the two kingdoms immediately afterwards. His teeth became crooked and he grew a bad fascination towards tea. He had become British. This was when the House of Commons became the Commons of the Kingdom of Great Britain in Parliament assembled. Seriously, that was its official name. The House of Commons wielded tremendous power inside the Kingdom of Great Britain and regularly collided with the king, who was either too scandalous or too ambitious. But they remained the only constant within British politics. Over the course of the 18th century, a new position within the House of Commons arose after the parliamentarians kept dumping responsibilities and job on one guy they think is reliable enough, so they can play tennis and drink brandy all day. This stressful position became known as the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister does everybody's work, while the members of Parliament just sit around yelling and throwing paper planes at each other. With a lot of responsibility comes great power, as Uncle Ben said.
With great power comes great big boots.
And the Prime Minister is now the strongest office in the United Kingdom. They still have to ask permission from the King or Queen to do everything, but it's not like the King and Queen can do anything else but sign the Royal Assent, a document to show that a law or bill is approved by the monarch. We can understand that the United Kingdom is a constitutional monarchy, constitution being centralized within a single document. The Constitution of the United Kingdom is scattered everywhere inside the laws, customs, and unspoken rules of the United Kingdom. And because of this, many laws are kept in place in the United Kingdom to retain the spirit of the law instead of the law itself. So have fun figuring out the repercussions of wearing a suit of armor inside the Parliament. The foundations of modern-day British politics began when this boring guy Clement Attlee was Prime Minister in 1945 until 1951. Leader of the Labour Party, he was boring and a bit of grey of character. But this was the guy that managed to beat the man who stood the Nazi tide alone, the political titan, none other than Winston Churchill. In an election, who famously said that he's all substance, zero style. This guy defined the post-World War II United Kingdom by turning the UK into a welfare state. Attlee founded the National Health Service, which became the template for a lot of healthcares around the world. He built 156,000 council houses, further spawning more shavs in the UK. He nationalized many industries so that they would have better distribution inside the country. And finally, Attlee let go of Britain's colony as part of their commitment to self-determination, decolonialization, and the evolving of international norms. No longer is the UK a superpower. Attlee's work was widely beloved by the populace, including by another divisive yet impactful figure in British politics, Margaret Thatcher. She was known as the Iron Lady, the woman wearing a queenly mask. She removed and overhauled some of the foundations Attlee laid down. Thatcher was an independent and emancipated woman who don't need to rely on men or other people of that case. She was the epitome of feminism. Everyone feared her shadow, and she was the one that brought the United Kingdom into a war with another pro-Western country, Argentina, all because they wanted to claim an island filled with some penguins. And her strong views were reflected on her politics, where she forced people to be independent and not rely too much on the government through economic liberalization, reducing the role of the state, curbing trade unions, and market reforms. She made the markets free and put the trade unions on the run. Thatcher reshaped the British economy with a series of neoliberal economic reforms and conservative agenda. Policies associated with her are called Thatcherism. And Thatcher's tenure as Prime Minister permanently molded the British economy in the future. She restructured the welfare state as to not be too dependent on the government, turning the UK into a weird amalgamation of a state where the government is involved in public prosperity, but at the same time, ridiculously neoliberal at the time. Thatcher's brand of premiership also influenced how future prime ministers pursued policy. She asserted that the UK must have the power to assert their influence and centralize power into the office of the Prime Minister by setting agendas of her own accord. Her influence even had a transformative effect on the Conservative Party, who now identifies themselves with free market and economic liberal platforms. With the groundwork of the modern British state laid down by Clement Attlee and the politics and governance of the British state codified by Thatcher, also following years of customs and political tradition, the United Kingdom continues to be a relevant and unique state as a patchwork of everything that works best for them from all spectrum of ideology, where its template and politics cannot be replicated by other countries. The British Parliament is the backbone of the United Kingdom instead of the monarchy. The Parliament exercises the power of the monarchy, who theoretically can do everything but is practically a powerless puppet. So, the monarch has to lend the Parliament its power in order to run the country. The Parliament is split into two. One is the lower house called the House of Commons. Their chambers are green, and this is where all the classroom debates and childish name-calling takes place in the name of running His Majesty's government. The upper house is called the House of Lords. Their chambers are red, and none of the members there are elected into their seats. It used to be where all the action happened in the British Empire, but is now reduced to a boring hostel for old men to sleep in. Nowadays, everything happens in the House of Commons, and even the Prime Minister needs to be from the House of Commons. A bunch of political parties within the UK are housed in the House of Commons. But they don't matter! The ones that always matter are the Conservative Party, or more commonly known as the Tories, and the Labour Party. The Parliament debates often on what to do regarding the matters of the state and its people, from whether it's wise to increase taxes for the rich, commit a bombing run on Syria, or to decide which spaghetti is the best. But the Parliament isn't the state, or the government for that matter. The British government is formed from whichever party wins the elections in the UK, and it's mostly from the Tories. They form, quote-unquote, His Majesty's government, and fulfill responsibilities such as national budgeting, national security, and counting how many immigrants can London fit. The biggest losers are then told to sit at the corner with a dunce cap. I'm just joking, that's a stupid joke. The biggest losers are then said to be the opposition, becoming quote-unquote His Majesty's most loyal opposition, whose entire job description is to make the government's jobs harder. They're usually the Labour Party. The leader of the party at the present moment gets the Prime Minister role. There's also stuff regarding the monarch's Privy Council, where they hold meetings while the king is in the privy. And then stuff regarding the Archbishop of Canterbury, who is supposed to be the religious head of the UK. But I think that is much better discussed in a different video. Since 2020, the UK has been living in the post-Brexit era. The UK has been enjoying the life of an European Union member since the end of the Second World War. But since the early 2010s, many people felt that the UK's ability to come up with its own laws, policies, and attitudes separates itself from the rest of continental Europe, which is difficult when they are a member of the European Union. So, they decided to pack their shit together and leave the server. No longer a member of the European Union, the UK is free to make up its own stuff and deal with shit on its own. But since then, the British has got themselves in really weird predicaments where they change prime ministers every half a year. At first, Theresa May fought against the parliament and her own party about how they should leave the EU. She cited herself as a fighter, not a quitter, but she quit in the end. This paved the way for Boris Johnson, the guy who the media likes to say is the British version of Donald Trump. Boris pursued a hard Brexit policy, which is what got him elected in the first place. But his conduct as Prime Minister is touted to be the worst in recent times. Boris was accused of a mixture of ham-fisted denial, disorganization, and outright lying. His handling of COVID-19 was so bad, he got COVID himself. And when he was so bored of his own protocol, he threw a house party for himself. Boris also looked the other way when many of his party members were committing scandal. Because of this, he was accused of bringing the worst sorts of British politicians into the forefront. One thing he was good at, besides Brexit, was his stances against Russia. Good job, Boris! Boris's mix of misconduct costed him his premiership, where he was overthrown by a coup within the Tories, who wanted to replace Boris with the even more promising Liz Truss. Her name has Truss in it, so you obviously gotta trust her. But a series of oopsies and the stress of handling a government crisis was too much that a shelf lettuce outlived her. The Tories then decided to go woke and put a minority into office. Since being a South Asian is now cool, any South Asian man they can find now is automatically given a leadership office. This is how Rishi Sunak became Prime Minister, and so did Hamza Yousaf as the First Minister of Scotland. Rishi is an Indian descendant and Hamza is a Pakistani descendant, and both managed to export the Indian-Pakistani feud to the United Kingdom through Scotland wanting to break free from England. Rishi was a rich guy and he was probably put there because some Tories didn't want to pay taxes or something. Rishi Sunak pledged to halve the inflation, grow the economy after Brexit, lower national debt, and shorten the NHS waiting time. But last time I checked, Rishi Sunak is apparently trying to calm people down because the interest rate is getting higher. Only time will tell if he gets to keep the office or get booted. Right now, the UK is facing a major concern over its economy impacted by COVID-19 pandemic and Brexit. The UK fears stagnation and lack of productivity. The UK is also facing social issues at the lower levels of society, such as younger age people facing a housing crisis, environmental degradation, and immigrant-fueled crime spree that spawned a child rape gang. All in all, the United Kingdom is facing a major change within its society and politics never before seen since before the time of Thatcher. Its independence from continental Europe has always been integral in British national identity, wanting to stand apart from the rest of Europe, becoming its own thing. But in a time when economy between countries intertwine, British independence comes at the cost of economic downpour. Cut off from the rest of the EU, the UK must now face problems alone and contend with the loss of privileges it had with the rest of the herd. In my opinion, the UK currently lacks a strong figure or movement to tackle its problems one at a time. The Conservative Party that is currently ruling is choosing leaders based on compromise and leisure without any greater vision of resolution. And as Britain herself is often likened to a ship, I feel she's now sailing without much of a captain chartering her course. Thanks for watching this episode of Based Indonesian Show. Don't forget to click like and subscribe if you like these sorts of content. And I will see you in the next episode of the Based Indonesian Show. Bye-bye, real people.